depth audit, looking into how the UK on-trade, different venues are meeting or failing to meet this growing demand for alcohol-free. We're hearing a lot about it. We're seeing growth in the category, but are the venues keeping up was the idea here. So we very recently conducted the same audit again to see if we are getting better at putting low and no on the menus, and if there's more learnings for us as an industry is how we can execute this category and meet customer needs more, changing customer needs more. So very quickly, KAM is a boutique research and insights led consultancy, work in hospitality sector. Most of what we do is sort of internal bespoke consultancy projects with people like recently worked with Turtle Bay, Lena Stores, taste testing for Wasabi, Wingstop, category deep dive for Thatcher's Cider, brand awareness for Roxy Leisure. So we work with a number of different agencies. And the other thing we do is a lot of sort of consumer trends research reports to make sure that we're knowledgeable and keeping up with things. And that's how we started working with Everleaf in more detail. So this is last year's report. The new report is ready and out, and I'll share a QR code with you at the end so you can download even more information. This is really just a taster of it today. We also run a quick plug. We also annually do a big low and no drinking differently category report in partnership with Lucky Saint. That's going to be launching in London and Canary Wharf, in fact, on the 25th of June in a few weeks' time. We'd love to have you all there. I'll share some more details on that later on. So that's a real deep dive, so we can really understand how consumers in the UK are drinking differently, and they are. But this is really what we're talking about today, is what's actually happening in the venues themselves across the UK. So let's talk about what we've done this year. As I said, conducted by KAM in partnership with Everleaf earlier this year. We went into 100 different venues in London. Most of them, it was a sort of representative spread, if you like, of urban venues, I would say. So this is potentially best picture of the current set in the UK. Included multi-site venues and sort of more independent pubs, bars as well. And across that breadth of venues, it represents about 4,400 UK pubs, bars, restaurants across the UK. So auditors went in to assess the visibility, as mystery auditors, if you like, so didn't announce themselves, went in to assess the visibility and accessibility of the category, and also their experience of ordering an alcohol-free drink compared to what they would expect otherwise. They also conducted a couple of interviews with bar staff to see how the bar staff, how knowledgeable, if you like, the bar staff were. So here's some of the top line stuff to wet the whistle on that. So across the board, the results from the study showed that alcohol-free is not a massive surprise, is now available pretty much in an alcohol-free option. We're not including soft drinks, obviously, in this, are available in virtually every venue. It may only be one, it may not be a broad breadth, but they are now available. This was the same in 2024 as well. One of the big changes, I guess, is that 100% of the venues said that alcohol-free is available, and where it is on their menus, and it's not everywhere, it's available all year round. So again, supporting this change that we've seen where a number of years ago, the dry January trends is sort of, it's no longer a seasonal trend. There's no longer a demand for it at certain times, or only at certain times of year. It's a permanent part of many Brits' drinking repertoire, and now is a permanent part of the majority of venues who stock it and sell it. So good news, I guess. This wasn't the case a few years ago. One of the clearest signs of the shifts in how much the UK venues have broadened and diversified their range of alcohol-free over the last 2 years is shown here. So we recorded what percentage of the venues that we're going into offer these options. Some of the auditors had to search high and low for these. Don't get me wrong; these weren't necessarily easily visible, but this is what we came out with. So you've seen a growth here. Beer in bottles is a good few years ahead, if you like, of some of the other what we call them subcategories, I guess. So alcohol-free beer completely dominated the space back in 2024, but now we're seeing real growth in availability in spirit, cider, wine, cocktails, spirits, etc. as well. So you can see their alcohol-free spirits in particular have jumped from 47% availability to 70% availability, a huge shift in a relatively short period of time, as increasingly venues are realizing the benefits, value of making these products available to their customers. So yes, in alcohol-free spirits in particular, within the categories themselves, the offers are expanding as well. Last year, we had a large proportion of venues who literally offered maybe 1 or 2 options within each category, maybe slightly more for beer. And now that is shifted as well. So not only are more venues making the products, the alcohol-free products available, but they are also broadening the choice that they have on the menu, which is a great thing. So for example, the average number of alcoholic-free categories on a menu has increased from 3.4 to 4.1 since we last did the audit. Great news. However, the average venues, on average, the venues still offer around 3 times as many alcoholic cocktails and alcohol-free ones. Probably doesn't come as a big surprise. So while alcohol-free drinks offers are growing, they're still playing catch up for sure in the majority of venues. Visibility then. So yes, they are there somewhere in many venues, and the number of them, or the choice of them, is broadening slightly. Great news. The next question we looked at is how visible they are. Tried to track how visible. How easy is it for me as a customer who may not be very familiar or as familiar with these relatively newish brands in the grand scheme of things? How easy is it for me to find them? Availability obviously only matters if the customers can actually find the products. And this chart shows the availability of alcohol-free at the bar. So standing at the bar, how visible are the products, or are there signage there to help me see what products are available? Alcohol-free beer and spirits have seen a huge improvement in visibility from 2024 to 2026. And generally, you can see very clearly visible for beer in particular, 73%, need to search for them, 14%, not visible at all, 13%. So beer is getting there, edging forward in visibility. Where we see it on draft, of course, that helps a huge amount, and that is a big signpost to a consumer that this bar is taking alcohol-free seriously, and they will expect other categories to be there as well. So generally, alcohol-free draft is a good for the entire category. In 2024, only 39% of people could clearly see alcohol-free beer at the bar. So you can see that's grown considerably. But, and this is important, the progress is inconsistent, I guess. A lot of venues are still failing to give alcohol-free drinks across those different categories equal prominence to alcoholic drinks. Particularly, you can see their alcohol-free wine, and this has a massive knock-on effect. If customers can't see something when they're standing at the bar, they're much less likely to order it. And as I said, remember, a lot of these alcohol-free brands are less well-known, less instantly visible, instantly recognizable. So making the poor visibility is even more damaging, I guess, as well. What about menus then? Oh, hang on. Okay. What about menus? Visibility on menus. We saw a very, very similar story, to be honest, when we looked at the menus themselves. So this shows where on the venue we tracked on the venue for each sort of category, if you like, where on the menu do alcohol-free variants generally feature. And 9% put them on a separate menu altogether. 16% mixed in with alcohol options. 22% still are not putting their alcohol-free options on the menu at all. Compared to previous years, we have seen improvement. More venues are now creating dedicated low and no sections, particularly for spirits and cocktails, actually. We can see that over half are now putting low and no in a dedicated low and no section. Good news. But again, there's still a hell of a lot of inconsistency there. Some products are in dedicated sections, some are mixed in with alcohol. It can be confusing for guests, certainly causing friction for guests where they don't know where to go. If alcohol-free options aren't clearly signposted, obviously, on the menu, again, what we see is people defaulting back to water or a soft drink, something they know will definitely be served, something they have tried and tested before. So absolutely, without doubt, this lack of visibility or confusing visibility will be impacting sales in the bars themselves. Sorry. Next. Thank you. The other massive impact for customers, of course, is the staff impact, right? How a staff helping make it visible, available, appealing to the customers, the guests that are coming in. So we asked our auditors to rate their experience when they were served an alcohol-free drink and interacting with the staff. So percentage of guests who agreed or strongly agreed that their server met the following criteria. I'll let you read through that and you can digest it in the report as well. One of the most encouraging findings from this year's research compared to years gone by was around staff confidence. Massive, considerable change in the staff's awareness, not just awareness, but also confidence around the category and what was available, which was a big difference even in versus 2024. So in 2024, 70% of staff said they felt, only 70% of staff said they felt confident discussing alcohol-free options with guests, which you'd think would be a bare minimum ideally. That's now risen to 82%, so a big leap and in a positive direction. And as you can see from the screen, this is recognised by guests. 79% of our auditors said that their server responded confidently and clearly and explained what alcohol-free options were available when asked. So yeah, good news. Alcohol-free being more normalised, if you like, within the service element in the venues and no longer treated. I'd probably beg to differ. There's only in many venues, it's no longer treated as an unusual request. Some of the new research we just got back from our new low and no report suggests that there are still many customers who feel that they're getting the odd eye roll here and there, or not being met sort of positively perhaps when they request alcohol free. But we'll dig into that. I think it's happening less and less for sure, which is a good thing. There is, however, a bit of an experience gap here coming out. So confidence doesn't always translate staff into a great or spot on guest experience, shall we say. So while staff are generally comfortable discussing alcohol free and what they might have available, that's something extra, if you like, that real spot on customer experience. The customer is increasingly expecting, demanding in the service isn't necessarily there. So relatively few staff offered a choice of alcohol-free spirits or mixes to guests. For example, when they went and asked for a basic alcohol-free gin and tonic, for example, there was no choice offered. There was no choice given, even if there were perhaps a couple of options available at the bar. So even fewer staff that we spoke to could name a specific or sort of proactively, if you like, named a specific alcohol-free product or ingredient in there as well. So again, that sort of extra service levels that we'd expect, perhaps particularly related to cocktails, isn't there. I can functionally serve you a drink, and I know what is available on the menu, but I can't talk around it. I can't necessarily give you that extra experience that you'd expect perhaps from an alcoholic drink. A key area, I think, for venues to focus on going this sort of staff training, staff experience. And then I'm going to move outside, so I'm running out of time. We know at KAM, we talk to people about their whole path to purchase, their whole journey, if you like, and all the different touch points on it when they're thinking of going, even leaving the house. How do they choose a venue? people are choosing venues more digitally without a shadow of a doubt. No surprise there. Websites, Google listings, and increasingly AI-driven search results are absolutely critical. And when someone specifically isn't drinking, they are generally the person who will make the decision of where to go, or certainly have a bigger influence over where to go, because their choices are likely to be the least limited. They're much more likely to check out the menus on the website, or want to check them out on the website, Google listings, etc., before you go. The research found that there is a big gap here. More venues are now listing alcohol-free options online versus 2024. Good news. Generally, a lot of this report is positive, but could do better, I guess, to put it in school teachers' talk. So great news, there's still a major gap. 43% of venues still have no meaningful alcohol-free information at all online. Suggests they're available at all. That means many operators are for sure losing guests, losing bookings before they even arrive. I'm going to pass over to Dan for this slide as well, if he's there.
That's fine, the mute button. Thanks, Katie, that's perfect. Really good to go through the slides. We'll take some questions and have a discussion in a minute. The 5 takeaways that I take out of this, though, are pretty clear and up on the screen here. So stop hiding choice. So as you saw from Katie's slides, 40% more or less of people aren't putting alcohol-free drinks in the prominent spot they deserve. We've got 2 operators on the call, Camillo from Aqua and Nico from Clay's, who are both doing a cracking job, and I'm sure are happy to share some insights, but make sure it's front and center. Menus are clearly the most important spot to have things. As Katie said, if you walk into a bar and restaurant and you can't see something, you won't order it. I think when I started with Everleaf 5 years ago, occasionally people would say, well, people can ask for an alcohol-free drink. We don't need to put it on the menu. But my answer was always to reflect on how often guests order something on from the food category that's not on the menu. So I don't think many people walk into a restaurant and ask for an omelette if it's not on the menu. So why should they do it with drinks? So make sure it's clear and obvious on the menu. I think we're guilty as brands of shouting at operators a lot to do a better job. But I think this one, actually, tip 3 is about the brands as well. I think we've got a responsibility as a category to taste and train with people, and that's something we're trying to do a lot at Everleaf. It's a continual project. It's like painting the first or fourth bridge. Once you've started, you have to go back to the beginning and keep going, because people move around from different venues. But making sure that staff feel confident to recommend things is really important, and that you've got brands that they believe in. I think lots of venues are now starting to turn their back on the kind of watery analogues of well-known spirits and looking for things with a bit more personality and flavor. So I think that's where we need to work on. The digital doorstep Katie mentioned, I've been lobbying Google for about 2 years now and seem to be slowly getting somewhere on the fact that you can indicate whether your venue has wheelchair ramps and has vegan food, but you can't highlight whether it has non-alcoholic drinks, which I think is a key preference for people to find. And then Paul is on the call, so founder of Everleaf. His vision for Everleaf was it has to be at least as good as everything else on the back bar, otherwise what's the point? And I think we need to take the same approach to non-alc cocktails. We've got the right glassware, the best garnishes, the biggest flavors, and make sure it's as good as anything else on the cocktail list, not just good enough. So those are my 5 takeouts. And then Katie, I think, has got one more slide with a...
Well, yeah, but we're going to move over to some discussion now, which is great, but very quickly, shameless plug. This is our launch of a big annual bit of research that we do. Everleaf will thankfully be there as well, among other brands, other lesser brands, obviously. And there's low and no drinking event Thursday 25th of June in London, and we can send some information about how you can join us there. But this is really, we've got people from Caravan Restaurants, Stonegate, Green King, Live Nation, Waitrose as well. They're talking about how they're seeing the category and how it's changing and what they're doing in their venues and things. So learning from the off trade as well, which will be interesting. So yeah, hope to see many of you there as well. But let's pass over to talk about some of the key things we've seen today. Actually, shall I stop sharing so we can see? Everyone's lovely
Maybe leave
faces.
that up in case people want the QR code, but we
Oh,
will
sure,
email
sure.
some stuff out later. But feel free
Okay.
to either come off mute and ask a question or share some insight or type it into the chat. We've got about 6 minutes before we release you back to the rest of the day. So don't be shy. Please ask a question if you've got something to talk about.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'll jump in. Thanks very much for sharing that, Katie and Dan. I'm actually just really interested in the growth of no and low broadly as a category. So obviously you've given a good indication of visibility and education and the ability for venues to translate their no and low menu. How is no and low tracking in terms of penetration in venues? I guess sales and percentage of non-alc beverages versus alc beverages, etc., specifically in spirits.
Can I answer from a top level and then hand over to Camillo and Nico to give a more like venue-led lens, if that's right?
Thank you.
So I think we know from the top level that no and low is growing at a large percentage rate, and we've seen lots of really exciting stats around that, but we still know it's less than 1% of beverage alcohol. So that's at a very top level and looking at on and off trade. I think we know from our experience with Everleaf that rate of sale is sometimes absolutely phenomenal in accounts and at other accounts not so much. So maybe Camillo, Nico, if I can invite you to come off mute and maybe share how it's going with you guys.
Yeah.
So maybe Nico first because you found your mute button.
Yeah. So one thing that I can share, and that's based on what I see in our venue. 4 weeks ago, we changed the menu and the approach we take. Well, before we had the low and no category at the very end of the menu, with specific cocktails created just for that category. And one piece we were seeing that very rarely the people go onto the end to read the entire menu. So our low and no category was not moving much. And therefore, like, rather than people going and look for a nice cocktail, non-alcoholic, they were just like drinking Coke or juices. So this time we took a different approach. What we did, we started with the alcoholic cocktails, the creation of the alcoholic cocktails. And then in the menu, like, we got the same drink, we translate that into a non-alcoholic. So when you look at our menu, you see the page of the signature cocktail, which are alcoholic drink. And then there's the same drink is available as a non-alcoholic option. And to give you numbers to understand the impact of that, the first Saturday here in Seoul, we sold over 1,000 signature cocktail and 460 non-alcoholic cocktail. Now, that number we would normally do in a month. We did it in 1 day. So the visibility, whether it's on the menu or at the bar, is extremely important, I think. And that completely changed.
Was it impacting the alcoholic cocktail sales, or you think that was incremental sales of alcohol?
It was incrementing the sales generically for the category of cocktail.
Yeah.
Which I was shocked. I was completely shocked. And I'm probably, when Dan was talking about 5 years ago, talking to people, I was one of them. It was more like a tick box, that category. And now after 5 years, I can say that I was completely wrong.
It is surprising, but also we've been tracking this for a few years. If people go in and they may not drink, they may drink alcohol on the occasion, but if they go up to a bar and don't want alcohol, they know that 1 in 4 approximately will admit to, they will just default to tap water because I don't want drink now, I just want tap water. If we're doing anything to shift some of those 1 in 4 customers to, offering them visibility, the temptation of actually a decent alcohol-free drink, that's exactly what you did, I guess. So that's a great case study, I guess, of improved visibility, front of mind.
Great. Adrian, hopefully that answers.
No, that's brilliant. I'm going to steal that stat if that's right, Nico.
Perfect. Does anyone have maybe 1 or 2 more questions? Just so we'll try and get people out on time and bring Camillo into the chat as well. I know we've got some of our European distributors. So I think we've got some Julie from Belgium, and then some of the team from Switzerland. So is anyone feeling brave there? You can jump in if you want, GT, with an Italian question.
Shall I speak in Italian then? Hello, everyone. No, just a question for mostly for the operators in the call, but for everyone. Let's say asking how confident you feel about your team being able to upgrade any orders that come from I'll have a Diet Coke or I'll have a sparkling water to a non-alcoholic cocktails instead. How confident are you of your team, or how do you think teams are in these occasions?
Camillo, can we tempt you in there?
Yeah, I got it now. So I think the most important thing in this part is the training. Working really closely with the brand and understanding what is the brand, obviously, purpose. For us, incorporating a really good cocktail menu is not just about the beverage part. As you say, if you're going to upsell something different than your typical soft drink, then what we're creating on our menus is a much more closer approach to a pairing with the food. Now, it's in some of our bars across UK, we take a different approach in the sense that we create these cocktails and we pay tribute to classic cocktails so we can actually make them non-alcoholic. So we have beautiful cocktails that are on the menu currently, which if you were to have a margarita, you can have a non-alc. If you were to have, a Trinidad sour, you can have a non-alc. If you were to have a New York sour, you can have a non-alc. So it's how we can eventually maximize and pay tribute to the classics and convert them into a non-alcoholic drinks. I think one of the most important things with Everleaf as well is that it's not just fully a non-alcoholic flavor profile. We'll also use the brand to maximize the flavor and the taste on our low category cocktails. So this is a really good kind of point, referring back to Adrian when he said the comparison in between the spirits and the non-alcoholic category. We actually blend both because the flavor profile is so intense and it allows us to play around with it to create these menus that we actually use. It has a double purpose. So it's just not just the non-alcoholic category, it's the low category as well, but this is where Everleaf plays a really nice role.
Perfect. Thanks, Camillo. So mindful, we said that we get everyone out at 11:15, so apologies for running over a tiny bit. A big thanks to Katie for being our wing lady and the team at KAM for that. Maybe we sneak in one more question. I love your username. I don't know your name. Office of the Spicy Muffin Bar.
It's going to be a very quick one, and I'm not going to ask a question. I really came on board to really get a sense for Everleaf because it's not one of the products that we currently have within our alcohol-free cocktails. So, so it's been really good to hear the positive feedback. I do a lot of pop-ups, especially in the corporate spaces at the moment. And there is definitely an increase in demand there for alcohol-free cocktails, and also in the world of going out for like works drinks. It used to be the case that if you weren't drinking, it was like or if you were plastered, shall we say, at the end of the works do, then it was a good one. But increasingly, people are looking for the alternatives. So I find that my clients come to me for that. So it's been really good to them. By the way, my name is Safer.
Safer, nice to meet you, and thank you for that. It's really kind. Please feel free to reply to my email with your address and we can get you some samples to taste. So shall we pause there? Obviously, we've got KAM Low and No coming up in June, so Katie will share the details of that. I've put a link in the chat for getting hold of the report, but anything else you need, just feel free to email me. It's dan@everleafdrinks.com. And thank you to both Katie and the panelists, so Nico and Camillo, for both BCB and then today.
Thank you.
Nice to
Cheers,
see
everyone.
you.
Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Julie.